Hello, hello. Welcome to our special Valentine's Day episode of the HVA-Chicks Coalition Free Training. Today, our weekly free training is brought to you by our awesome sponsor, Goss Tools and Equipment. They're one of our newer sponsors. I'm really, really happy that they signed on with us because they're not only doing torches now, they're doing HVAC tools too. We're going to have a whole bunch of new stuff to check out, to do content on for you guys to hopefully try out when we have events, all these cool things. Um, Anyway, so today's episode is going to be about relationships in HVACR. And I'm only recording right now as we wait for people to come in because people watch these a lot on their own time because obviously it's a Saturday, we have time with our families. That's where I want you anyway. I don't want you at training if you don't have time to be at training. So if you're watching this later on, this setup, our new setup is in, so we're like super primitive this week. So we are currently working on our setup, and it's not been a fun ride so far. Hopefully it'll be done by next week. But with the time constraints, who knows? Anyway, so with this setup, you can't see the board super, super well, obviously. So I don't want anybody to worry about that. If you are watching this later on and not in the live stream, please just go ahead and message me or go to the group. This board will be posted there forever and always. So if you can't find it in the group, or if you just would like me to send it to you, feel free to reach out to me before you watch this. Just pause the video, reach out to me and get the board, and I'll send it to you so you can follow along. Or you don't really need it. It's more for me to, remember where I'm going with things and not get super sidetracked. Hello, Jesse Egan. Thank you for being here, my love. For those who don't know, Jesse Egan is just as much of an expert as I am at relationships in HVAC. And by that, I mean not at all. We're in relationships in HVAC, both of us, but we probably have more stressors than everybody does caused by this job. So, but thank you for being here with me, Jesse. And if you guys haven't, there was an old podcast called the Cooler Heads Podcast, and it was Brett Wetzel, Advanced Refrigeration Podcast, Bill Russell, the Curious HVAC Guy, and Adam Muthage. And it was on Saturday mornings at 8 in the morning, and it was more about like the mental health side kind of HVAC. It was a super good show, and we all wish they would bring it back. But again, time constraints of HVAC. So if you haven't checked out that show, you can go back and watch the old episodes on YouTube. Jesse and I did a couple of them, I believe, on this very topic. So go and watch that as well. So in this episode, we're not just going to say, relationships in HVAC are hard, suck it up, buttercup, or, leave your wife. Like that's not where we want to go with this. And that's unfortunately where it ends up going. So instead of just being super, super vague and giving you, tips from my personal life or anything like that, what I've done is I've compiled some research and statistics. And I've researched psychologists who work specifically with people in trades, not necessarily HVAC. Obviously, we're very niche, trade. But in trades in general, a lot of us have the same, or similar time constraints, mental constraints, substance abuse problems, all of these things that happen to people in the trades because of their job, right? So there are some psychologists who work pretty much solely, exclusively with people in trades, and they've compiled a lot of research, and we've taken from that research for this class today. So starting out, I just want to say, every single one of you who has relationship problems, you're not alone, just like in terms of the world, but every one of us understands what those relationship problems stem from. Everybody in the comments, everybody that watches this video, everyone in the coalition, everyone in your trade does. Why? Because they are not personal. They are directly associated with what we do for work. Hi, Susie Dunn. Thanks for being here. No, I don't have an OnlyFans. I work on compressors too, as you can see. If you'd like to see my only compressors, though, I can share it with you later. Okay, so on the board, what I've done is I've put some statistics here. I've put the research on methods of communication for tradespeople. And then I put kind of like, what is the problem? What is the problem? It's not a problem. It's lots of problems. So this Valentine's Day, I want to talk about those problems because we don't talk about it enough. It becomes taboo. In our everyday lives with our friends and our family and our neighbors and the day-to-day things that we're doing, we don't talk about this. And the worst part is we don't even talk about it with those people whose relationships we're struggling with. We don't talk about it with our spouse. We don't talk about it with our children. We don't talk about it with our mom and dad or our neighbors down the road who we used to be available for barbecues with, and now we're on call every Saturday. I mean, there's always something that pops up that kind of just tries desperately in HVAC to put a knife in every relationship we're in. And it doesn't, I mean, it could be your relationship with the guy at the gas station, right? Maybe he's the one that sees you at 4 a.m. all the time, and now you're switched to nights. Now you don't see the guy at the gas station anymore. I mean, it affects every single aspect of our lives, even though it is quote unquote just a job, right? Other trades deal with this quite a bit as well. But I would say that HVAC being a very niche and very specific trade in what is required of us, we probably have some struggles that are different from the outside world in general at large. So we're going to talk about those struggles. If you guys have anything to add, please put it in the comments. This is a conversation I don't want to have by myself. I hate even shooting this class on YouTube because I can't really interact as well. But it's the best way to get it out to all of you and have it stay there forever. So, and that's what we want. All right, so relationships in HVAC. What are those specific challenges that we deal with as HVAC technicians? There are a lot of them. This whole board would be filled, and so would all of the walls in my training room if I tried to actually list them all. I'm not going to do that. What I did do is compile the biggest ones I know that I have suffered with I have been on both sides of the HVAC curve, right? So I have been just an HVAC wife, a wife who did a whole different job. I was a teacher, I taught kids, did a whole different job, was the one that stayed home with the kids, was the one that did the doctor's appointments, was the one that went to all the school events, was the one that waited up late, making sure that my husband wasn't dead in a snowstorm at 2 a.m. You know, I have been on that side. And then I, unlike many women, some of them actually in the comments have done this as well, chose to join the trade. I chose to join my husband in the trade, not just join the trade. And in doing that, I think I've kind of been able to see both sides of every dimension. Every possible fight you can have in HVAC, I've had. I have had. And I promise you, I did not handle them well. I only learned how to handle being in a relationship with somebody in HVAC when I came into HVAC myself. And even then, I was then the new kid in HVAC that was struggling, right? So these are all the ones that I thought affected me the most, and probably, and from what I hear, would affect all of my students the most, all of my, manufacturers the most, all of my fellow techs the most. So my husband followed me to this trade. That's amazing, Susie. I love Susie and Randolph's, their love story. I'm going to bring her on the show one of these days and get her on the radio show to talk about it. All right. So the first one is long work weeks. Long work weeks. Now, I want to specify that I don't only mean long work weeks, right? I also mean short ones. If you're an owner, the way that Val and I are both the owners of our company, it is much more of a struggle when we don't have enough work for both of us to have long hours than it is if both of us were working for somebody else and we're gone all the time. And I mean, both of those are big, big, big problems. But it could be long work hours and then boom, no work. It could be, so the next one is unpredictable hours. That's the other part of that, right? They go hand in hand. We don't have necessarily a one size fits all description of this. This could be anything that is based on the hours you work that drives a wedge into your relationships. And I don't only mean with your spouse either, you guys. I mean with your kids. Like we have, and I hope you all read the Gazette when it comes out. It's coming out next week. I truly hope you all read the Gazette, because my daughter actually took up a column in our Gazette. And it is basically the world through the eyes of an HVAC child, someone who has both parents in the trade and in the field, and kind of her thoughts from her perspective on things, so we can really learn about how our children feel. That is a big relationship in our lives that we struggle with. And the problem with that is that even in a spouse to spouse communicative, approach, in a conversation with our spouse, we are looking at two fully developed brains who have, mature emotions and feelings and thoughts and vocabularies, right? And also don't have the fear of being outspoken. So we can get a lot more out of a conversation adult to adult than we can adult to child. Children don't have those mature, developed brains. Children, have a really hard time classifying their emotions, but also outwardly their emotions don't come out how adults do most of the time. It's an impulse trigger rather than something that's a thought of, response to what you're doing or what's happening. Work versus home pressures. This is something that is both spouses, and all of this is almost. Some of them, yes, are specific to the HVAC tech in challenge, but most of it is on both sides. We have two sides of the same coin trying to live together while constantly battling and fitting, trying to fit puzzle pieces where they don't go, and all these things that are happening around us. When you have stresses at work and you bring them home, and I am not going to be the one that says leave the work stress at the door. Yeah, right. That's all I have to say about that fix that a lot of psychologists will say. I've been to couples therapy, and they'll say you have to leave your struggles at the door. It's impossible. It is something that you will spend all of your time and energy fighting to do, and you will never actually accomplish it. So we can't do that. We have to bring stress home from work. And at the same time, our spouse, maybe they work. They're also bringing work stress home. And then even if they don't work, their home is their work. And that is stressful. So that's just always there. And that's kind of building and building and building to this cloud of pressure that's just kind of bearing down on everybody in your household. That is not a pleasant place to be, but it's one of the hardest places to leave. You can't just decide one day that that's not going to happen to you and have it not happen. We have to actually work at it. What happens is we have to not only understand our work stress for what it is. It is work stress. It is not, I hate my wife. It is stress that I brought home from work, and it may not be a, identifiable, like this happened to cause me to act this way today. Usually it's just a buildup, internal buildup of just pressure from here and pressure from there and pressure from there and pressure from here. And then on top of that, we end up exploding all over the people who didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, no, we have many people watching. Thank you for being here. Silent Hell, I do not read my chat while I'm teaching though. I will after though. I will definitely get to any questions or comments you guys have. Just if they're ridiculous, I'm not even going to address them. So, all right. So fatigue and that's physical and mental, not just I'm tired, right? I would say a lot of it is usually how fatigue and pure exhaustion is actually noted as laziness, right? Or a lack of trying or a lack of caring. It's a lot of it is we are so exhausted that maybe we had the whole week off for Christmas, right? And by the last day of our vacation, we are still sluggish and non-communicative and isolating ourselves and moping around kind of, or just not really wanting to do much. Our wife has 50 plans for us and we just can't even seem to bear the thought of one of those plans, this is often disguised as something else, but what it is exhaustion. It is fatigue. And again, that goes on both sides. Spouses who stay home or work other jobs are also fatigued. And I mean to the bone. We're not just tired today, right? We are burnt out. And that's another thing that's on here. Burnout. And that means the worker and the spouse. Everybody's burnt out in a family situation. Everybody is burnt out. So if everybody's burnt out, who is the one that comes in and fixes the burnout? Exactly. There isn't anyone who can come in and fix the burnout. It has to be done internally by all people involved. The next one is communicate. And we're going to talk a lot about communication, so I'm not going to dig deep into that right now. What this means is that we tend to communicate the same way we do at work. So if when our boss loses their absolute shit on us, we communicate a certain way. All we drive into ourselves. Maybe we have to take 10 deep breaths until we can walk away. Maybe we have, maybe we're an explosive person. So we end up having an all out brawl with our boss every single day of our lives, right? We tend to, however that is that we communicate at work, we go home and we continue to communicate like that. And that's not because we choose it. Most of the time, it's just that it hasn't ended for us yet. So we have yours is doing something silly because mine says 6 right now. So I don't know what yours is doing. But anyway, so we have this kind of just like ongoing platform of how we communicate. And we go to work, before the sun comes up, we work all day. We're communicating a certain way at work, right? Maybe we're faking it to our customers. we're honest to our apprentice, and to our boss, we're just trying to avoid them at all costs. That's three different forms of communication that we're actively practicing all day long. A lot of it's, customer service. When you have to transfer yourself into your customer service self many, many times a day with many, many different customers, that becomes exhausting. And then you get home and it's either you're going to transfer yourself back into that customer service state so that you can smooth things over and not start anything and not have to communicate. You can just kind of breeze through the rest of the night and get to bed and then wake up in the morning and do it all over again. Or you take any other way that you communicate throughout that day and you communicate that way. And that is what's unhealthy. That's what causes the problems. So the next one is the Mr. Fix-It versus Mrs. Fix-It attitude. Everybody wants to fix it. If you love somebody and they're struggling, you want to fix it for them. And that's just it. You want to fix it for them. If you don't fix it for them, you feel like you failed at something. And then on the flip side, either one of two things happens. You either also want your spouse to fix it for you, but if they can't fix it for you, you either feel like they failed, or maybe you don't want them to fix it for you at all. So Val and I, my husband and I, have two very conflicting personalities. Anyone who knows us knows this. Val is very quiet, but he is a doer. If I say something like, I really wish the sky was green today, Val will do anything in his power without saying a word to go try and make that sky green. And then by the end of the day, when he couldn't make that sky green and he's upset about it, then it comes out and we're bickering. And I'm like, what is going on? And then it comes out later on that I couldn't make the sky green for you, right? It's some people are real fix-it people. And some people, like me, I don't want him to fix anything. I'm just a talker. I just want him to listen, right? And that is where we come to these impasses in communication. Impasses in communication cause, I would probably put it in my own relationship, I would say that has caused 90% of the fights Val and I have had, is just misinterpreted what one wants from a conversation versus the other. And so we have to talk about that. And we're going to talk about how we talk about that as well. So that's what brings us to emotional neglect. And I don't mean just of others. I mean of yourself. When you are, and I have struggled with this too, because I'm such a big personality and Val is such a quiet person, he tends to neglect his own self, personality. He neglects his own personality in favor of mine. Mine is much easier to accept and watch and, avoid, right? Val can stay very, very quiet and everything will still happen because I'm there and I'm big and bold and making it happen. On the flip side, I tend to also neglect myself because, as far as my personality goes, because I fear it's too much for people, or because I know that, Val's had a long day and I know he probably doesn't want to talk right now. And he never said that, but I assume it. And so if I assume it, it must be real. And then it causes this whole other layers of horror, right? So then there's also time in general. Just time. Either you take the time for the people in your life, or not even the people, but yourself. You take the time to fix what's broken, not only at work, but at home too, or you don't. And a lot of people like to hide behind there is no time, right? But what I have found in not only in my own life, but in research as well, under these awesome psychologists, is that people tend to make time for what they want. Now, it's not always emotionally what they want. Sometimes it's physical too. So sometimes our bodies can decide what we're going to make time for without really much of our own input. It's kind of, I'm too tired to do that. And that's what comes out of our mouths. That's what movements we make, even though in reality, maybe we're actually desperate for fun. And going out with friends sounds amazing. You just can't physically bring yourself to do it. And so we have impasses not only with each other, but within ourselves as well. So what are some of those physical factors? Okay. So if I go and work, say 12-hour shift, right? And I'm running service calls and I'm talking to person after person after person after person. My boss is on me about moving to the next job quickly. My customer is hovering over me and constantly asking for an update when I don't have one. Maybe I ended up giving an update that I thought I knew was right. Maybe I thought I got to the root of the diagnosis. So I told my customer that. But once I fixed that, there was actually a different root. And now I had to go back and tell my customer, sorry, that wasn't the right diagnosis. Now he's mad at me. My boss is mad at me. My next call's mad at me. Everybody's mad at me, right? And then I get home. And when everybody's been mad at me all day, my body, my mind assume everyone is mad at me. That doesn't differentiate between the people at work and the people at home. So maybe when we walk into the door, we're already combative, and we're not meaning to be. It's just something we haven't let go of yet. So what happens the second we walk in the door to our bodies after a shift like that is we have elevated cortisol. And when we have elevated cortisol, our entire body is affected. Every system of our body, our muscular system, our skeletal system, our nervous system, they're all affected by that rise in cortisol. Now, as cortisol rises, though, other good things drop. Science factors. Elevated cortisol means we haven't reset our nervous system yet. So if we still have elevated cortisol from being at work and having all these crazy, pressures on us, and we walk into the house and we don't reset our nervous system, we continue on with that same day. Work hasn't actually ended. The stress hasn't actually ended. We may have gotten in our van and left the job site physically and walked through the door of our safe place, but we haven't given that safe place a place to be yet. We're still having to reset our nervous system because as our cortisol rises, our serotonin depletes. Any bit of happiness that could be chemical in our brains is going to be out the window because that high cortisol keeps us in a state of fight or flight, and it does that on purpose. Imagine if you were faced with a danger, right? Something that your body saw as pain or fear, right? And instead of flooding us with cortisol, our bodies flooded us with serotonin. We would be standing there in front of a monster with a, hacksaw trying to kill us, and we would be humming a little tune and smiling and, oh, you don't want to hurt me, monster. That wouldn't be very effective for our, human evolution and staying alive. And, our every cell in our body has no other job but to stay alive. So if our brain didn't work like that, didn't work with our cells to stay alive by giving us things like fear and, pressure and stress and things that we have to feel in order to get through what we're dealing with, we would be even worse off than we are now. So instead of changing that chemical makeup or wishing it was changed, what we have to do is learn about it. We have to know that the reason that when we walk in the door that we're already combative, already angry, we literally take that deep breath before we turn the knob, right, and go, here we go. That's not resetting your nervous system. That's gearing up for a fight you don't know is on the other side of the door. But every single cell in your body has just decided that it is because your mind did. So the thing that makes this worse, the thing that makes it harder to stop that cortisol rise and instead rise serotonin and dopamine and the happy hormones is exhaustion. We sleep because our whole system needs to reset. Every system, not just our nervous system. Every system needs to reset at night, right? Except back when our bodies were designed, we had the capability to sleep 12 to 14 hours a night. We don't have that ability anymore. Most of us sleep maybe 5 hours a night. Some of us with 3-year-olds at home and really busy jobs sleep maybe 2 hours a night if we're lucky. Maybe we take a cat nap. Like, we don't sleep enough. And we get up crack ass early in the morning and we work until it's dark outside. Some of the time, we don't even see our kids. I remember that when Val and I first started communicating about how he felt on his side of things when we would just fight all the time, his main complaint was, Jennifer, I don't even get to see my kids. Like, I leave, I'm out the door before they even wake up in the morning. And then I get home and everybody's getting ready to go to bed or they're already in bed. I didn't even have a chance to see my kids, but I have to sit here and listen to you complain about them, about what they put you through all day. And hearing that triggered something in me, and I was able to absolutely understand it. And still to this day, I try to change it. We all do, right? But it was very interesting to me that perception, his own, autonomic perception of the situation was simply that he doesn't get to see his kids. Whereas my autonomic perception of the same situation was, I'm always stuck with these kids. So we have to think about that, those conflicting perceptions and viewpoints. We're not the same person. We're just living the same experience. So what happens when all of this comes together to rise that cortisol, not allow us to bring it down, and we don't give our brains a break from the day? What happens is our immune system, our nervous system, our musculoskeletal system goes into protection mode. So if we're in protection mode, it's very, very hard at that point to convince our brains we don't need to be. It's very hard to say, hey, brain, I know you just locked my entire system out and you're not allowing any new information in, and you're, isolating us from everybody, and you're avoiding every situation that might be social. But I got to tell you, this needs to change. It's not going to work. Having a conversation at that point in your body's life cycle isn't going to work. All that information that your spouse gives you in a conversation will bounce right off out into the atmosphere. It'll never come back, ever. So what can we do about this? This is definitely a big problem. Who is it affecting, and what can we do about it? The stats are 2 in 800 trades workers, marriages end in divorce. So for every 400 trades workers that are married, one of those ends in divorce. I would say that's even much, much higher when we think of relationships, though, because lots of people aren't married, right? And lots of people didn't take the study. I would put that divorce rate even higher if you turn it into, instead of divorce, a breakup rate, like breaking up for good. Many, many, many times this happens in trade families. Not necessarily just in like trades in general. In HVAC, it's even higher, because think about a roofing trade. Yes, you might get some overtime, but it is not required of you to leave at 2 a.m. and go fix someone's roof. Say your spouse works at the supermarket, right? She works 9 to 5, or whatever hours the supermarket is available. She's called out in the middle of the night to go out and deal with that. It's waiting until she comes into work the next morning. Many people in the workforce are allowed to take a break, and HVAC just isn't one of the trades where that's acceptable. We don't get breaks. That ends in divorce. This communication part is typically what the root problem is, but the job is the root to the root problem. Now, 19% of people in trades, this is for you, buddy, in my comments, are addicted to a substance, whether it be alcohol, whether it be narcotics, whether it be anything. It could be anything. 19% of trades experience addiction. Now, I would add probably 100% if we added caffeine and nicotine to that list. It is so hard to be in this trade and not attain some sort of vice. It's very, very, very hard to differentiate between the person you want to be and what you think will help you to be that person. A lot of the time, people get completely accidentally addicted. I have seen apprentices who got addicted to alcohol solely because they had a lead who was. Watching a guy take a shot at lunchtime every day, and then eventually that lead doesn't want you to talk, so he's getting you to do it too. You want to be liked by your lead because maybe you're new or you're an apprentice. You end up doing it. After a while, you end up addicted to something. Instead of escaping our lives, what we have to do is learn how to be present in them. Because a lot of the problem is we have unwillful escape right now. We are not leaving every morning at 4 a.m. after sleeping 2 to 3 hours last night. We're not leaving our nice warm house and our nice warm family to go work on a -20 roof or in a 150-degree attic because we want to leave them to go do that. However, their perception of it is, I cannot imagine allowing myself to live that life. You must be choosing it, right? Now, because of that, we have a disproportionate mental struggle to 5 other trades. So they actually did do a trade-specific study, and in that trade-specific study, 6 trades were asked about. And in those 6 trades, HVAC, 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 all of the elevated responses were people in HVAC. And that's because this specific trade asks specific things of us. It's not just the hours, you guys. How many of you, and I know that you'll all be proverbially raising your hands here. How many of you have had a day at work where everything seemed to go wrong? All of us. How many of you have had a boss that continuously, every single day, beat you down? I have. In HVAC, it is seen as a rite of passage rather than abuse, which is the real word for it. What we deal with from some leads, from some bosses, from some owners is actually abuse. But we are taught and raised to endure it, right? Your flex is how much you endured. It shouldn't be like that, but that is how it is. Now, people in other trades or people in other industries don't understand that. They go, what do you mean your boss shoved you off a roof into a snowbank today? You know, like it's absolutely unfathomable, the things that we go through in this trade to other people. That's why the communication part is the most important. That's why it's so hard for our spouses and our children and our mothers and fathers to understand this. My mom, when she was alive, hated that I was in HVAC. And she didn't hate it because she wasn't proud of me. She was terrified. Every single day, she was terrified about the job that I do. She was like, you know, you have the ability. You don't have to work, you know, a separate full-time job. You have the ability to stay home with your kids. You're homeschooling already. Like, why are you doing this? What she couldn't understand, and what I've realized since, what many people can't understand is that not only is this job really, really hard, but it's really fun. Like, I like my job. I love fixing things. I love solving puzzles. I love diagnosing things. Unfortunately, what makes me a good service tech in the field is also what makes me a shitty spouse sometimes. And even other relationships, it makes me a shitty friend often. If I have a list of 5 things that I have to do during my free time this week, my friends won't even be on that list. And that just makes me a very unsocial person. It isolates us. It's totally understandable when you know about this. But when you don't know about this, it's really hard to understand. And it might seem, especially for those of us who have been like, you know, Val's been in the field for almost 30 years now. So when I came into the picture 20 years ago, he had already been in for 10 years. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, why are you upset about this? Like, he just could not understand. And he also didn't understand that I didn't understand. So once I got into HVAC, there have been many times where I have actually looked right at him and been like, I am so sorry I treated you the way that I did. And he said the same thing. In the times that he's had to stay home with the kids, or that he's had to teach a class or create curriculum since, he's been like, I don't know how you do this all the time. And it's very understandable to have that separation because most of our lives we're at work, right? So more of your life, you're at work doing your thing where everybody around you understands it. Then are you at home where nobody understands it? So it just becomes easy to fall into this pattern of never having to communicate that. If this guy knows all about my life as an HVAC tech, why don't you? You're my wife. You should know more than him. And that is where the fundamental impasse comes from. So 1 in 3 spouses feels isolated and lonely from their spouse. 1 in 3 HVAC spouses. I would probably put that at more, and people just don't want to say it. I've been an HVAC spouse, only an HVAC spouse where I was not in the field, and I've never been lonelier. I've never felt more isolated. You're sitting there talking, you know, even if you do get the odd chance to be out with friends, and then your friends are trying to plan an outing, right? And you're the only one sitting there going, I can't commit to this. I can't say, yes, my family will be there next Saturday. I can't say, yes, my husband would love to go golfing with your husbands. A, he wouldn't, right? But B, when would he do that? You know? And I know that if I make, so in the beginning, what I did was make those plans anyway. And that's what a lot of us do. That's what a lot of HVAC spouses will do. We make the plan anyway, even though in the back of our mind, we know that our spouse can't commit to that plan. So like, it's just a fundamental idiocy of us, but we do it anyway. Why? Because we don't want to be the odd man out. I'm sitting here with all my friends. I don't want to be like, sorry guys, my husband's job doesn't allow for me to plan this with you. A, that's going to be misinterpreted, right? They're going to start saying, oh, well, your husband controls you and, you know, you're not allowed to do what you want to do and blah, blah, blah. You can't put your foot down and make sure he shows up. The problem isn't that. The problem is that I know he would like to be there just as much as I would. And I know that if he were sitting here and he were the one having to decide whether we were going to go or not, he would be thinking the same thing. How do I commit to this early? I can't. Even today, I have events like AHR. We just went to AHR Expo, right? And I am contracted to go to AHR because of my sponsors. It's in all 23 of their contracts. So I have to go. I didn't even book my plane ticket till a week before because I didn't know when I could leave here. I didn't know what day, what time I could physically leave here. I knew I had to go, but I just could not pull the trigger on committing to a time and a place. It is so hard for us to do that when we're an HVAC family. So then it becomes not only are there miscommunications between the family, there are miscommunications with our family and other families. Now we feel like we don't fit in general, not only as people, but as a family. It just creates this huge ripple effect that is just so much pressure on us. So there are things we can do. We don't want our spouses to feel isolated. We feel isolated too. Like Val said, how do you think I feel when I've got to get up before the sun comes up and get home after it's gone down? And I didn't even get to enjoy the sunshine today because I was in a basement crawl space all day, you know? And there are these little things that we could literally go back and forth, back and forth. My life is worse than yours. My perception is worse than yours. I've had a harder day than you. I'm more tired, or I have more right to be tired than you. None of that helps. It doesn't help. And I did it for years. I know it doesn't help. So how do we change that back and forth that we're so used to? How do we change it and stay in the same relationship we've been in where we've been fighting about this for 20 years? There are ways to do it. I just want to read Jesse's. The way the industry progresses, we have to continuously learn, which also takes time away. Yes, exactly. So it's not just you're at work. It's also got to go to events, got to watch a podcast. Every night we've got to look up what it is we couldn't understand about that unit today. We've got to watch other techs and see what kinds of tools they're using, what kinds of, we're a two-man show. So a lot of what we're watching at night and learning is how do I move this package unit alone by myself? I've got to watch other people who have done it. A lot of our time, if we're a good tech, is spent in research as well. Like you said, Jess, that's a great point. Okay, so what do we do? And I want it known. Just because these are the statistics, 2 in 800 are ending in divorce, blah, 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 it doesn't mean that we love each other less. HVAC techs do not love their wives less. HVAC wives do not love their husband less. It's the problems from outside that infiltrate the family that are really fundamental, deep problems. They are not, it's not just, do you like chicken and I like steak? It's are you capable of taking care of your children for 2 hours on Sunday while I go out with my friends? Or am I going to have to cancel that again like I have the last 5 times because of your job? Meanwhile, you're sitting there going, I didn't not want to watch the kids so you could go out Sunday. I just had to go to work, right? And that's how we see it. It's so hard to see it the same together all the time, and it will never happen. So what we have to do is we have to compromise. Compromise is such a general term, and I hate to use it. I really do. One sec, guys. Compromise, a lot of people say that is the answer, right? To compromise with each other is the answer. That's how you get through this. That is so vague. It doesn't give anybody an answer. That just means, okay, when am I supposed to sacrifice? When is he supposed to sacrifice? Why are our kids sacrificing when they didn't choose to be in this life? All of these things become a compromise. So either we end up just saying, okay, I'll compromise. Okay, I'll compromise. And we're always the one that compromises. Or we say, I can't compromise. And we end up in divorce or break up. That's how it works. So we've got to change the answer and dig deeper into the answer before we can actually answer it for ourselves within ourselves. So the way I've done this is I've set up our relationship like maintenance and repair, because that's the language we understand, right? We may not know how to make our wives happy, but we definitely know how to fix a unit. We know how to perform preventative maintenance all day long. We can do that with our eyes closed. Why? Not because we cared more about it, but because we spent more time honing those skills and understanding it and researching it. We know how a system ticks. What we don't realize is how similar a relationship is to a system. So let's talk about that. Maintenance and repair are like relationships in the following ways. We have to prevent things from happening. Relationships often rely on reactive impulse. Something happens right now, we deal with it right now, and it explodes in our faces. Many of those things, yes, there are emergencies, don't get me wrong. Things will pop up that you couldn't have controlled in the interim. However, many of them can be prevented. If you're dreading going home at night because you know it's going to be the same fight you always have with your wife, and that your kids are going to be upset and the house is going to be a mess and your wife's going to be in shambles and you're not going to be able to fix it, and if that's what the problem is, we don't want to react today to that problem. Not like that. We don't want to walk into that house and react to something we already know is going to be there. Instead, we want to have prevented it in the first place, just like your unit. If you have a unit that is acting up and you get there and you find that the reason is a general lack of maintenance, everything is dirty, nothing is working correctly, you're going to go, ding, ding, I know what happened here. But for us to walk in on the same situation 200 times with our spouse and have the same fight and the same words come out of our mouths and we internalize the same things and not go, ding, ding, lack of maintenance, we need to correlate those things together because they are the same thing. And prevention means attention to details. A lot of the time in that reactive fight or flight instinct we take a giant chunk of what's happening and we talk about it, we communicate about it, we worry about it, we internalize it. What we have to do is break that up into tiny, smaller bites because there is a lot of detail that comes with this fight. And the reason it feels like a new fight every day is because usually there is parts of it that are new. It is actually something that was added today that wasn't there yesterday, or something different from what was there yesterday. But that doesn't make it a whole new issue. It's still the same issue. We just haven't gotten to the root of the problem yet. I correlate that to firing off the parts cannon, right? If you are consistently going to a unit and just changing parts and you're not diagnosing what's wrong with that unit where the root cause is, you're going to go through a whole lot of parts, just like you're going to go through a whole lot of fights if you don't do that same thing in your relationship. So we have to pay attention to the details. Instead of, before we walk into the house, taking that deep breath and going, here we go again, right? And assuming what's on the other side of the door. What we want to do is at the end of every single day before we go home, we want to remind ourselves that something different could be happening today. And also that even if it is the same old fight, something different happened today. Something different. There is something different, which means there's not only a new problem, but there's a new possibility of solving, right? Anytime we have a symptom, what if every time we went to a unit, we only got one symptom and we had to completely diagnose off of one symptom? We wouldn't be able to do it. It's the same with relationships. If you only pay attention to one symptom, my wife is always angry when I come home. That's going to be what you pay attention to. You're going to think that's the cause and not a symptom, right? There are many symptoms throughout what's going on in your lives where you could take those as symptoms and diagnose, which is what you're good at. You're already good at it. We just have to change our thinking from one side to the other. So now we go, how do we do that? We assess the big picture. We assess it as, this isn't the problem. This is a symptom of a bigger problem. We've got to get to that bigger picture before we can understand what to do next. There is no moving forward in an HVAC unit or otherwise, if in a relationship even, if we don't have a way of correlating them together. So big picture is maybe time constraint from my job, right? That's just a general one, but a very good one. So I never have time to be home to help my wife. I was supposed to be home before dinner for the 50th time this month. I'm again not home before dinner, even though technically my shift ends at 3:30, right? My wife is, maybe we don't know how the wife is feeling because we haven't taken a chance to listen yet. I know that my wife's actions are going to be looking a lot like anger, right? That's what I know is happening here. My wife is angry at me because I can't be home before dinner. Now, if we think of that as a symptom and the time constraints of the job as the big picture, we can then break it down into littler pieces. I might not be able to solve this whole situation right now. I may not be able to fix it, right? No more Mr. Fix It. I may not be able to fix it. But what I can do is I can solve the symptoms. I can maybe treat a few of the symptoms that weren't there yesterday and make sure they're not there tomorrow. And then tomorrow I'll have less symptoms. I can dive deeper into that list and see how we can get to the root of this. If we can approach our relationships the way we approach a unit, well, we can't fail. All we do is win. Don't skip components. And I skipped one on purpose. Don't skip components. Again, if you fire the parts cannon, you're not fixing anything. You're just accidentally making the unit run. Right? It's an accident. It's not real. So we have, say, a unit that is tripping out on high limit. Trying to approach your angry wife for the 50th time that you haven't been home before dinner, trying to approach her and say, you knew this was going to happen. It happens all the time, is the equivalent of trying to change the high limit switch in that unit and thinking it'll fix it. It's not going to fix it. It's too surface level. We need to find the actual airflow problem in order to fix the reason that the limit is tripping. Just like we need to find out what is hurting my wife so much that she's reacting in anger. And why haven't I given her the space or the opportunity to show me whatever those real emotions are? And have I told her what my real emotions are? Because when I walk in here and she blows up at me, I'm going to blow up right back. Or I'm going to stay silent and I'm going to walk away and go isolate myself away from it and avoid the problem. She has no idea how I feel now. I'm just assuming she does. I'm assuming she knows how I feel and is still angry at me. That assumption is just like assuming something in HVAC. It doesn't work. Recover and weigh in the fuel. If we take a relationship, right, and we do the bare minimum, our relationship may continue. We may wake up tomorrow and our family is still in our house, right? But that is not the goal. That is a Band-Aid, right? So today is Valentine's Day, right? And I know so many men. I've been talking about it in my classes all week with my companies about what they're going to do for their wives for Valentine's Day, what their wives are going to do for them, et cetera, et cetera. And what I've heard so often is, I'm going to make sure that I'm home before dinner and I'm going to surprise my wife with a dinner out. That's amazing. That is such a wonderful, beautiful gesture. But it happens once a year and only because it's Valentine's Day and only because it's expected. And not expected by your wife necessarily, but it's expected by society, right? It takes away the gesture. It takes away the genuinity of that gesture when it is something everyone has to do. Sending flowers to your wife's work because you guys got in a fight the night before. We've seen it on a movie over and over and over again. It's not the act a lot of the time. It's not, oh my gosh, he's so sweet. He made sure he was home at 4:00 and he got the kids ready for the babysitters. He got them in their PJs. He made sure dinner was ordered for them. Bought me a new dress, maybe even new shoes, helped me put on my necklace, walked me to the door, opened all my doors. We had this wonderful dinner. Then we came home, we put the kids to bed together, and now we're sleeping peacefully. That is the equivalent of jacking refrigerant into the unit when you think it's low, without knowing for sure and without recovering the whole charge. So if we're just Band-Aiding all the time, adding a little bit of refrigerant and a little bit of refrigerant and a little bit of refrigerant, eventually it's going to become overcharged. Eventually, all of those little gestures that really meant so much in the beginning are going to mean absolutely nothing. It's going to be, you're just trying to Band-Aid this. I know what you're doing. You're buying me a new bracelet because you can't be home for the next month, right? It just becomes so redundant that we can't get to the root of the problem now. Now we have this whole other step of what's broken that we have to get to because we just kept Band-Aiding and kept Band-Aiding. We still aren't communicating. We may have had a wonderful dinner, but we still aren't communicating. We still are too tired to have any intimate time whatsoever. Our kids are still running and jumping out there and I'm trying to read my book and you're yelling at the kids to stop. And life is still happening, even though you had a wonderful dinner on Valentine's Day. We've got to get to the little pieces of life before we ever get to the big gestures on Valentine's Day. That's for sure. Never fix one issue and leave others. Okay, so you fixed that high limit switch. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe that was why it was tripping out on limit. But what you didn't fix was the fact that the return is crushed up in the attic, right? Or that even worse, that there's a, critter living in the return type in the attic. Okay. We can't leave other problems just because we've addressed one. So, okay, this is the list of things that is hurting your wife. You guys have finally got to the bottom of communication. You know what things need to change. You change one of those things and expect that to be the end of it. What? I did what you asked. I did what you told me to do that you needed. You haven't done anything I've needed, blah, blah, blah. We come back to the same exact problems, the same exact things. So, thank you, baby. So then we come to elaborate in your service notes. You guys are so capable of sitting there in your trucks at the end of the day and writing up your service notes with details and amp draws and pressures and temperatures and supply and return and, all these things. But we're so incapable of bringing that detail into the conversation with our loved ones. It's the same. Everything is rushed. When you live a life that is constant time constrained, you will rush everything and things you don't know you're rushing. You could have 3 days off, but when you wake up in the morning and you see your wife and she starts to talk to you about her day or starts to plan with you, yes, 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 yes. And you'll just yes her. Or you'll, You will not add that detail, even though you have all the time in the world, because you're used to having to rush that conversation. It doesn't change just because you have 3 days off. And you don't want to, have this really great communication on the weekends, and then you go back to work and now you can't communicate anymore. All of a sudden you're dead in the head when you get home, right? So these are all problems that we hit like a truck to a wall because there doesn't seem to be a solution, but there is. And the solution is small, easy, and quick. What the solution is adding that same detail that you are used to having to speak with, that you are used to having to document at work into your life. And if you're not sure the first few times, look, okay, what did I add to my service notes today? Wow, that was 3 pages long, right? Okay, I can do this. Like, you have to actively try. It's not something that's just going to come naturally because now you know about it. You have to actively try. You're sitting down at night, you're having this conversation at dinner with your wife and your kids. Your son tells you, you say the typical, right? We have these scripts that we read off in our brains, right? How was your day? What did you do at school, right? And your son, he has one too. He has an internal script. He says, nothing. It was fine. And you leave it at that because that's quick. That's what you're used to. In your time constrained world, you have to allow that because you don't have time to go on a tangent with him. And then he's not getting to bed until 10 p.m. and he's not eating his dinner and your wife is angry. And how could you, rile him up like that? It's hard. Instead, ask for a detail. What's one detail? What class did you like the most today and why? What friend did you play with at recess? What did you guys do? It's very, very easy to add one little detail every single day. And then eventually what it does is it doesn't only affect your ability to communicate, but it affects how others communicate with you. Your son eventually, instead of thinking you expect nothing, it was fine, will start to know that you expect details. So when something happens today, in the back of his mind, he's going to go, this is what I'm going to tell my dad about tonight at dinner, right? And it's a time that you're already sharing with your family. It's not new time you're making. It's the same time. We just need to use it more wisely. We need to stop blanketing things and band-aiding things so that we can get to the root cause. You can't look at your wife and say, why are you angry at me? And expect her to give you one single answer to fix. There are many, many reasons she's mad at you. And all of them probably are that she isn't. Probably the reasons that she's acting out in anger is because that's her physical response to the internal pain that she's living in. Most of it probably has nothing to do with you other than that she thought she had a partner and now she feels like she doesn't. You probably feel the same way because not only are you the one that's not at home, but you're not eating right. You're settling for a gas station hot dog while she's home complaining that she could make herself a 4-course omelet for lunch. It becomes this battle of the wits, like who is more entitled to their pain. We have to throw that part out the window. We have to understand that every single person's pain, hurt, trauma, life, love, happiness, all of these things are self-relevant. They are not going to be the same across people, especially across person types, right? So if what's relative to her is she was really overwhelmed with kids today, she didn't even get to sit down for 5 minutes. Now it's 10 p.m. and your oldest won't go to bed and you're on your phone researching HVAC. You may not notice that as a problem. That might seem like normalcy to you. To her, it's a recurring problem that hurts her deeply every single time it happens. Now, that's not why she's mad when you walked in the door today, but it's something that is adding to whatever else happened today. And it's something that continues to add and continues to add. We have to get to the bottom of those little things. We have to open up that line of communication. So when we talk about educating your customers, you guys not only know how to fix the system, diagnose the system, which is the hardest part, understand the system, how it works, keep all of this crazy HVAC knowledge that is really, really hard work in your brain, but you also manage to read the room, right? Depending on who your customer is today, you're reading the room. You're going, okay, is this customer more handy and maybe used to be an HVAC person or a person in trades, and I can speak this way to them. I can explain to them that the problem was the capacitor. This is what happened. Or is it someone who maybe doesn't know anything about it, doesn't care anything about it, and they just want to know why their unit isn't working, and I give them the shortest, simplest answer ever, right? You're reading the room and learning how to communicate with multiple people. So when we get home and our cortisol's through the roof, and it's our wife that we're expected to communicate with, she's safe. She's a safe person. It's okay if you say the wrong thing around her because she'll still love you. Sometimes we have to stop worrying about that and we just have to say it anyway, right? Educate your customer. Educate your wife on how you're feeling. You can ask her to communicate better all you want, and she can tell you every single minute little detail about what's upsetting her. And it won't do anything for you. Even if you fix everything that's upsetting her and she's happy now, you'll just be resentful because now your needs still aren't being met. You have to be able to two-way communicate. And you manage to do that with so many people throughout the day. Your boss, your apprentice, your lead, your, manufacturer's reps. And you manage to learn something too along the way every time. But when we get home, it's like, I can't possibly learn from you because you're my wife. It's crazy, right? It's crazy how our brains can make that decipherence and completely cut off our entire nervous system from the people we love. It's crazy. So we have to change little tiny words first. Big gestures, again, they're great, but they're not achievable all the time. They're not sustainable. We have to make the tiniest little gestures. First of all, I as a person, I know not everybody is this way or feels this way, but I as a person appreciate and fawn over a tiny little change far more than I would over an extravagant change. You could buy me a Beamer, park it in my driveway with a big red bow, and I would still be angry with you for what you did 10 minutes ago, and you won't catch me dead in that Beamer, even if it's the Beamer I've always wanted. I am too spiteful for that. However, saying, Jennifer, what you said yesterday about why you were feeling that certain type of way, I thought about it today, and I understand, and I think I have an idea as to how we can kind of change that a little bit. You can't fix it, first of all. You can't fix it, and you need to throw that out the window and not think you can fix it. But what you can do is you can treat it. You can try to get to the root of it. You can put effort in. Sometimes the effort alone is the cure. Sometimes what your wife is, the big picture of what all those little details add up to is that she doesn't feel you're putting in the same effort as she is. So just to see you wonder about what she said last night when you're not with her, well, that's something she's never known you did. Even if you do it every single day, even if you constantly are poring over every word she said and you said when you guys were spitting, venom at each other last night, that's what you're thinking about in your work truck while you're driving to work. But you don't tell her that. Sometimes it's simply saying, I was thinking about what you said. You don't even have to have an answer. You don't even have to come up with anything. I was thinking about what you said means I care what you said. Means if all this other stuff at work that I'm always complaining about is going on and I'm still thinking about what you said, you must be pretty important to me. And in thinking about it, I was trying to come up with a solution. Not, I found a way to fix it, Jennifer. I'm going to staple a smile on your face now. That way you can never be angry again, right? That's a fix. What we want is a treatment to the big picture, to the actual problem. So when you say things like, I was thinking about what you said last night, that just means I was on your mind. That's something I wasn't sure of yesterday. Yesterday, when you came home from work and I lost my shit on you and you know, told me how much more tired you are than me, and then you went directly to bed and I spent all my night putting those kids away and fuming over the things you said, I didn't know you were thinking about me. And normally we've been doing this, say, 10 years, right? And I never knew you were thinking about it. I always thought you just let it go and expected it all to go away and thought that everything was fine now. No, that's just the easiest and quickest answer. We live in a world full of time constraints. So if there's an easy out, we'll take it every time. What we have to do is stop ourselves from taking that easy out. Understand that if we actually have a spouse or someone we want to be a spouse, we have literally the rest of our lives. We have the rest of our lives to figure this out correctly. We don't need to rush it. We don't need to say, yep, I'll be at that party Saturday. And then Saturday comes rolling around and you're like, I can't be at that party. I'm on call today. And that causes a huge fight. Now she feels like you didn't think about her. She feels like you didn't listen to her when she told you. She feels like you didn't take her feelings into consideration, that your work is always more important than family time. And all of these big problems all come back in and snuff each other out. So we've got to treat those little teeny tiny pieces first. One of the ways, I don't remember where I put this. Well, whatever, we'll start at the top. So the Gottman method. The Gottman method is for people with high stress jobs, not just HVAC or just tradespeople, people with high stress jobs. A lot of the things that they have found are the root cause are communication issues. Yes, we know the job is the root cause, but we can't get rid of the job and we're not going to get rid of the family. That's crazy. So we have to find something else we can treat. What can we treat? Communication. So the Gottman method says that we immediately establish with our spouse something to expect. So maybe every day of my career, I have come into the house and my kids run and jump on me and my wife is, okay, it's your turn, I'm out of here. And now you've got to, put your stuff down, wash your hands and go, feed a baby and put the rest in the tub and get them to bed. And you know that you can't complain about it because your wife's just been here all day long doing this, right? Instead of that, you require something. So what this scenario requires is a 10-minute reset. That will be different for every person. What you physically need in order to stop this cortisol surge to end your day at work, right? What you actually need will be different in every single situation. Every person will have a different answer. And you've got to figure it out on your own. And that in itself is hard, but you got to do it. Because once you establish that, once you have an established rule as to how you're going to do that and what you need from your family in order to do so, things start to change very rapidly for the better. So I used to be one of those wives. Val would get home and I'd be like, okay, now get your shoes on. We've got to go here, and here. What Val needed was to not go and immediately get back in the car after work. So what I started doing is taking time out of my day, whatever I was doing, because I was the person that didn't have as much of a time constraint at the time. And I would go and run the errands then. Or, if he needed to pick up parts, I would grab them for him during my day. That way, when he got home, he didn't have to get in the car. Something as tiny as, I've been driving all day and I don't want to get back in that car. I'd rather die. Stopped a million fights just because I knew it. When we would fight, we would get the kids in the car and we would start going and he'd be silent. To me, it would be, he just got home. How is he not happy to see me? How is he not talking to the kids about their day? Why is he acting like this? Why is he so grumpy every time he gets out of the car? And why is he driving so much faster than normal? And, all these things had nothing to do with the actual problem. They were just things I assumed. So when I assume it, I say it, and then it becomes he's having to defend himself against things that aren't real, things I made up in my head about him. So instead, and not necessarily my fault, right? Because I have to either have an answer or my brain will come up with answers, right? So he wasn't communicating with me and telling me what the real problem was. And I wasn't communicating with him about anything I knew for a fact. I was just making assumptions and hurling them at him. That is not fair on either end. So, and also it wasn't fair of him to make me feel like it was me. And it's not fair of me to make him feel like there's something wrong with him, right? So, I had just gotten out of work too, but I'm able to carry on a conversation with my children and, feel happy about going somewhere. Why? Because I was working from home. I was sick of being in the house. So we needed different things. So instead, I started getting out of the house when he wasn't with me. So now I'm getting what I need by getting out of the house. He's getting what he needs by not having to hop right in the car when we get home. And now a whole bunch of the fights we would have had tonight are gone, just dissipated like that, like magic. Pretty incredible what one tiny little communication can solve. Now, in this situation, it's a 10-minute reset when the trade worker gets home. So you need a 10-minute reset to, you walk in, you hug and kiss your family, and your wife says, all right, guys, let's let dad go have his reset. Dad goes and, maybe you're a smoker of marijuana or cigarettes. Maybe that's what you have to do. You have to go smoke a cigarette. Maybe you vape. Or maybe you go and check your, maybe you're a gamer. You go and check your gamer messages, before you go out with your family, or, whatever it is. Maybe you're an outdoors person. You haven't been able to be outside all day just for, self-reflection and to be out there. Maybe you're like me and you need to grab your binoculars and go out and look at the moon for a while. If that's what you need, you have to say it. So we have to first establish the need. So, honey, the reason that I come home and it feels like we're immediately getting into a fight and you are feeling unloved or you're feeling lonely and all these things is because I still have a massive amount of cortisol surging through my body that was protecting me at work. And now that I've gotten home, I've not had that moment to reset. So that cortisol is still surging. It's still trying to protect me, but protect me from you instead of from work. And that's not right. I need to take that moment in order to remove that cortisol surge from my body and replace it with serotonin. That way, instead of going, oh my God, we're still at work, we're still, in combat, we still have, we still have things being hurled and flying at us and everything's loud and we need to, protect our system. Once our system shuts down into protection mode, it's over. It's go to sleep. And when you wake up, you can deal with it. It is literally that detrimental. So we've got to take that few minutes to just remove that cortisol surge, get that stress calmed down, for our bodies and our minds to associate what our eyes are seeing, right? We're home. This is our safe place. The people out there behind that door love me. They love me unconditionally. They don't only love me when I fix a unit right, like my boss, right? I don't want to communicate with them the way that I communicate with my boss, who only loves me when I fix a unit right. Those are not the same people. They shouldn't be having the same conversation. That is one really, really big one. And absolutely Gottman got it right because I did this one. And it worked. I can promise you from the tippy top of the universe that it works. I've done it. This has probably saved my relationship. I don't know where Val and I would have been if we didn't actually start to deal with our problems at some point. So then after that 10-minute reset, you've gotten what you need. Now you need to know what other people need. A lot of the time we think it's this big ask that they need, right? My wife needs me to go to the grocery store and get the groceries. That's what she needs. No, maybe that's not what she needs. Maybe she's expecting you to be the one to go to the grocery store because she is expecting to be the one that has to stay home with the kids. Maybe she's used to you being the one that does the driving, that does the, go getting, because you don't want to be, she assumes you don't want to be the one staying home with the kids. But maybe on the flip side, in reality, you're the one that likes to stay home with the kids. You would rather stay home after work and let her go to the grocery store by herself and take a minute. You would be very surprised what your wife's trip to the grocery store alone and your ability to be home with your children and kind of, attaining their love and attaining their innocence and their purity, as opposed to all the mean, angry people you are with all day. You would be very surprised what that tiny little change can fix all on its own. After we've had our 10 minutes, finding out, so how do we find out what that need is? We talk about it. That's how. We talk to our partner. Okay, I've had my 10-minute reset. Now, things we need to add in this attention to detail we're talking about, things we need to add to this conversation. First of all, we need to make it non-negotiable that we have the conversation. First and foremost, we have to talk about our day today. And we have to talk about our night and the future of tomorrow. We have to talk about it. We can't go to separate corners and ignore each other and each take care of a kid and each do this task and this task and this task. That's not living. That's life. That's not living. So we have to make sure that the conversation is non-negotiable every day. And it can't take place right when you walk in the door. You have to have those moments to leave the cortisol surge behind, leave the work stress behind, and reset your brain into remembering where you are and who you're talking to. Because if not, your mouth will start talking as if you're talking to those people at work. I don't know about you, but I never want to talk to my spouse the way I talk to the mother effers at work, right? So what is the need? The need is the grocery store has to be gone too, right? Okay. How does that make you feel? Instead of, babe, get your shoes on. What are you doing? You need to go to the grocery store at 7 o'clock and dinner's not on the table because you were home late. Instead of that, it needs to be, somebody has to go to the grocery store and pick up the eggs for dinner. I am happy to go. Are you okay staying here with the kids? Now you have the opportunity to say, honey, I always am okay with staying here with the kids. You know, if you want to go out and you want to be by yourself for a few minutes, I think that would be really good for you. You know, if I was the one staying here with these kids all the time, I would probably feel pretty overwhelmed when my work day never ended. It just continued 24 hours after 24 hours. I would love to stay here with the kids, you know, kick my shoes off, maybe watch a movie or play some PlayStation with my son or whatever, while you go, you know, go throw a ball around with the dog while you go to the grocery store and take a breather. Now, both spouses have had a reset from their workday. When the wife comes home, 99% positive she's going to feel better. Why? Just because she got away from it. But on top of that, she's had a chance to reflect. These are the people I love. I was snapping at my children today because I'm overwhelmed, not because of my children or something they did. These are very, very powerful tools. Not only taking the 10 minutes to yourself, but explaining what that 10 minutes needs to look like to your spouse. And then the last thing is end it with appreciation. Wow, babe, you're really okay with them if I run off to the grocery store? I'll only be a half hour, I promise, you know? And your husband's like, yes, I'm fine with that. Are you sure you're okay with driving? And, you know, you got that all okay and whatnot? You're sure I'm okay to be the one here and you want to go be the one there? And she says yes. And you say, okay, thank you for communicating about that with me. Now I understand that when you say, babe, I'm going to run to the grocery store, and I say, no, I'll go, I know I'm taking something from you. In my mind, I think I'm giving you something. Oh, I'm doing it for her because my wife should never have to go out at night and go to the grocery store. That's my job as a provider, right? Really, I was taking something from her. And now I realize that. So always end it with appreciation of the conversation, not the act. Thank you for having this conversation with me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for taking care of my kids all day. Thank you for allowing me the 10 minutes to reset so that I could come back and talk to you about this. What we also have to do when we talk about how something makes us feel is we have to not use the primary emotion. And this is well-documented psychology. If we use the primary emotion we're feeling, 9 times out of 10, that's going to be anger, rage, or sadness. We don't typically feel happiness in a way that feels like our primary emotion. We don't typically feel fear, hurt, shame, guilt, these things like they're our primary emotion. It comes out in the way we're acting. We're not acting shameful. There is no way to act shameful. So it comes out in anger, right? So maybe the problem was your boss was being a dick all day. And because of it, you got really, really nervous and you started screwing everything up. You started skipping steps, things you would never do if you were in your right mind. And now today you're home and you're feeling like, I couldn't make today right. And now you're thinking the rest of today is going to go like crap. So when we're thinking about how you feel about that and talking to your spouse, don't use words like, my boss pissed me off. My boss put a lot of pressure on me today. My boss embarrassed me today. My boss made me feel really bad about myself today. When you use those words, your wife can't help with my boss pissed me off today. Can she? There's no way to help with that. It's already happened and the boss isn't here to punch him in the mouth, right? Instead, she's looking for a way to help. Even if we know out the gate, because we always should, right? I'm not talking to you to make you fix something. I am venting about something. We need to distinctify those two things too. If I say anything to Val, he will go fix it, unless I specify that I don't want him to. So if I say, can I just vent for a second? In his mind, that turns off the Mr. Fix-It switch. Sure, you got 30 seconds before I start going and painting the world green for you, right? I can get that out of my mouth quick enough that he understands I just needed to be here with him. A simple hug. You get home and you assume everything's going to be go, 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 and it's crazy. Stopping for 30 seconds to hug your partner will change your life. Change your life tenfold. Now, using words like my boss was putting too much pressure on me today. What it really means in real life is it means that maybe your boss was, gave you 3 more calls after 4 p.m. and you promised your wife you'd be home. You feel bad about that. Now you're feeling guilt too. You're not just pissed at your boss. You feel bad for leaving your wife here without you for those 3 extra hours. You feel bad that you didn't get to see your kids. Things culminate into my boss pissed me off. But what you can say is, it really hurt me that I wasn't able to be home with you at 4 o'clock like I said I would. That really hurt me. When my boss made it so that I was definitely not getting home by 4 o'clock and I knew I was going to have to call you and tell you, that hurt me. Your wife can help with that hurt because she can reassure you that it's okay, that she made it through, that you're home now, that everything's all right around you. There are much easier ways that people can help with secondary emotions than they can with a primary emotion, or the action emotion, if you will. Listen to support, not to fix anything, unless they want you to fix something. If I say, Dave, maybe you can help me come up with an answer to this. I double booked, this company and this company. What can I do? Then he can say, I'll teach this company while you teach that company. There's a fix. Or I can say, this company canceled on me. This is the 4th time. I really have to have a conversation with them, but I really didn't want to have to do this. Now he's just listening because I didn't ask for a fix. That has to be established at the beginning of any conversation. And then for the end of it, we'll just say, don't leave the why out. You do that because your body is in fear of combat. You walk in and say, I had a really bad day, and we leave out the details because your body is afraid to give those details up and start another fight. You have to do it anyway. You have to push your body to let those details out because 9 times out of 10, it doesn't lead to more combat. It leads to more understanding, misinterpretation, miscommunication, the constant compromise or the inability to compromise. Those are the things that ruin relationships in HVAC. And I've seen it time and time and time again. I work with a lot of guys and gals who are either on their 2nd or 3rd marriage, right? And those aren't going well either. And that's because the job is the root cause and communication is the only cure. So people who can communicate really, really well at work already have a leg up. You're already going to do better than the rest. That's because you understand how to communicate. You just don't understand how to communicate with your spouse. Understanding your spouse is a different person from the people you've been dealing with all day, that your children are to be protected from you, just like, you would protect them from anybody else. We have to protect them from our job too. And in my daughter's article, she talks about this a lot, and it's a really great article. Make sure you guys read it in the Gazette. It'll give you some really good insight into how your children are feeling. And we'll do a children's episode as well. I'll get a bunch of people's kids on the show, and we'll ask them some questions and get to know how they would like us to react to their problems or to not seeing us as much, or what we can do for them. We can communicate with them right there on the live stream. But when you're not on a live stream and you're home and you're sitting around the dinner table, make sure that the dinner table is your focus. Make sure that you're looking at it as a system. How can I move through my diagnosis, through my sequence of operations, if you will, to get to the root cause? How can I fix that root cause little by little by little? And what kind of effort, what way do I have to show that I'm putting effort into this rather than just saying I'm putting effort into it? We've had this fight for 20 years and I keep saying, yes, it'll change. Yes, it'll change. I'm trying. But the effort isn't there. I'm not asking her when I get home, how was your day? What happened? What are the details? And do you want me to help fix, or do you just need me to listen? It's that easy. All right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let you go now that we're 20 minutes over. But this is just a really in-depth and really necessary class for everybody. I've never taught anything like this before. I just really wanted to do something that was Valentine's themed, but also something that's 100% necessary. And in the new Gazette, a lot of it's going to be, we will have a bunch of technical articles and stuff. Don't worry about that. The rest will be mental health, substance, ways to get, away from substances or to protect yourself against people who are addicted to substances that are in your work life. We have meal prep. Like just something as simple as eating correctly can not only change, like, you don't resent your wife because she's eating correctly and you're not now. Like it can change a lot just to eat correctly, just to meal prep. Danny's writing the article on meal prep. There will be, recipes in there for that, which are really, really good. Danny's really great at this. But yeah, there's going to be a whole bunch of it, and horoscopes, like little funny things. We have a comic that's exclusive to the Gazette. We have jumbles. We have horoscopes written by Becca Stamey and Brandon Bale. It's going to be really, really great. So check out the Gazette and use your free time to be with your family, you guys. I know that we have to research and we have to learn and we have to constantly be evolving in this trade. We can do that most of the time. If you're a service tech, you have time driving. Instead of listening to music, pop on a podcast or pop on a YouTube video that you can listen to and learn from. We can try to give up a little bit more of our work time where we're supposed to be being paid to learn, rather than giving up our home time to do so. Or we can invite our family to watch with us or do little quizzes, or lots of times we can incorporate our wife and our kids into HVAC a little bit, and it becomes fun for all of us. So yeah, any tips and tricks, any questions, any comments, any conversations you want to start in the group, please do. Again, I'll put the board up in there so that those of you who are about to watch this or just watch this can follow along with it. And I will see you all next week. Thank you to our sponsor of the week, Goss Tools and Equipment. We appreciate you so much for paying me to do work for you so that I can be here and do this class for free. All right, guys, catch you later.